On this episode of Eat, Sleep, Drive, yes, something is definitely missing from my garage. I sold my Lotus Elise. Stay tuned though, because I want to tell you why I did it and also how much it cost me to own that car for 1 year. Well, I can't believe the day is already here. I sold my Lotus Elise. Yes, it has happened. What can I say? I truly did adore that car, but it was time for me to move on, and that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. The Lotus Elise was far and away the most different, unique car I've ever owned or even driven, really. It's truly a special experience in every way. If you guys have seen my review, I talk all about it in there. I owned that car for almost exactly 1 year, and I decided to move on for a couple reasons, but the main reason was I didn't really drive it that much. And I know that's kind of a generic thing that people say when they buy cars, but it was one of those cars that got so much attention. I was afraid to drive it anywhere because of that attention. And by that, I more so mean like I'm afraid to park at places. So I never really wanted to drive it to work because I was afraid that, you know, I'm gonna leave it in the garage and then maybe somebody might mess with it. Especially if I had the soft top on or something like that. It's a super easy car to steal or mess with. And I was always just worried about, like, you know, unfortunately there's a lot of like jealous people in the world, and I was afraid they might like key the car or something like that. So I never really drove it to work. On the weekends, you know, sometimes I would drive it, but you know, it wasn't super comfortable. My wife didn't really enjoy riding in it. You know, so it's just I wasn't getting a lot of use. And I did do a track day with it, which maybe you guys have seen that video on my channel. Absolute blast, but I couldn't justify keeping it around for 2 or 3 track days a year. So I decided to move on and I sold it. But that brings me to my next point, and something I want to talk to you guys about if you are interested in buying a Lotus Elise maybe, and how much it might cost you to own. So I'm just going to jump right in here to like what costs are associated with owning a Lotus Elise. So in 1 full year of Lotus Elise ownership, that car only failed me exactly 1 time. And I hate to even say the car failed me. I think it was more of a previous owner problem, someone not installing something correctly. But if you go way back in my episodes, there was an episode I did where my Lotus Elise, it was dripping, or I would say pouring out transmission fluid on the ground. And I couldn't figure out why at the time. Like, I was at a parking lot just somewhere, so I had it towed home so I could dig into it. It turns out that there's a carrier bearing that holds one of the, I think it's the passenger side axle in, and the bolts that hold that carrier bearing to a bracket had backed out. And I say, once again, I think that was more of a problem of like the previous owner not installing things properly, because the car did have the clutch replaced at some point, and I know he did the job himself. So I don't know if he just didn't torque it to the appropriate spec or what it is, but I ended up, you know, just throwing new bolts through it and refilling the transmission fluid. So that was the one time that it let me down, and that cost me $51. So the tow itself was free because I have AAA. So I don't know if you want to count that or not. And then it was $51 worth of transmission fluid and 2 bolts. So super simple. That's the only time it let me down. What other money did I put into the car? One thing I will also say, like, I'm not including things like running costs that you're going to have with any car. So like insurance or gas, I'm not going to include those. Like any car you have, you're going to have to pay those. Now, for reference though, just to give you guys an idea, my BMW 235i, the Elise is, because this is only going to make sense, this is only like a ratio is only going to make sense. My cost of insurance where I live might be very different than yours, but the ratio might make sense. So for instance, for example, say I paid $900 a year on my M235i. I was paying $600 a year on my Lotus Elise. So I was paying 2/3 the cost of what that car is. Like I said, theoretically, if I was paying $900 on this, it was $600 on the Elise. So it's actually pretty reasonable to insure. And additionally, as far as gas goes, I was averaging 26, 27 miles to the gallon, and that's mixed driving and not driving it very kind, if I'm honest. So I just wanted to get those out of the way first. So costs that I incurred while owning that car. Now, I opted because I thought it would make for a better resale, like easier to sell, and also I was going to do a track day, so I opted to do a couple things. I put $1,143 worth of wheels and tires on the car. I put $200 worth of suspension from a Lotus Exige. I put a $760 hardtop on the car, and then I also paid $200 to have the car aligned once I put that suspension on. So for a grand total of $2,354. That's all in, everything that I had. So here's where it gets interesting. I ended up selling the car for $2,000 more than I paid for it because of those aftermarket parts that I put in. And then additionally, I ended up selling the stock wheels and tires for $300. That adds up to $2,300. So effectively, I drove that car for a year for $54. That's, I think, incredible. Like, there's probably not too many cars that you can get away with that kind of situation. Like, it's a unique car, and there's enough of a demand out there for them. They don't even make them in the US right now. So if you want one, you have to buy it used. So it's just kind of boggles my mind that I got to drive that car, you know, essentially rent it, and I put 4,000 or 5,000 miles on it. I took it to a track day, really enjoyed it. $54. So if you're interested in buying a Lotus Elise, I say go for it. I think it's money well spent and a pretty, I'm not gonna say investment, but it's a pretty decent bargain as far as if you wanna drive it for a while, a few years, and then sell it, I think you'll get most of your money back. But I just wanted to share that with you guys. You'll be seeing more from my channel for a different project coming up. So don't worry, like, I sold the Elise, but there's more to come. Thanks for watching as always, guys. We'll see you next time.